Good evening, everyone. Here we are again. Welcome to all those who are returning. Welcome back to the community, and welcome to all the new people who haven't been with us before on this journey of awakening. It's a beautiful opportunity, this being Easter, for us to look at what is sacred space in our lives.
Yeah, thank you for joining us on this precious Sunday, during this unprecedented time we find ourselves in, with lots of time to spare, hopefully. And yeah, we're looking forward to spending the next hour with you. And yeah, this is a creative space, a sacred space with you guys. So thanks for joining us. If it wasn't for you, we couldn't have this.
This is a sacred community. I just want to do a sound test. Some people last time couldn't hear Michelle. Just if you could just indicate in the comments box whether you can hear us both okay tonight. That would be nice to get some feedback on that. What I'd like to do is start this evening just with a centering meditation to bring us fully here. We've all had a lot of Easter going on today. Some people have maybe even ventured into the world of Easter eggs and hot cross buns. And let's just bring our mind out of that. Let's come into the present moment. So how we do that is maybe you want to shut your eyes and just focus for one moment on your breath and your breathing, because the breath is the breath of life. And breathing and life are one and the same. Without breath, you haven't got life. So for a moment, just shut your eyes and sink into the awareness of your breath and of your breathing. Take a deep breath in, right down to your belly button, pushing your tummy out as you breathe in. And then a long, slow out breath, just releasing your shoulders, your neck muscles, and any tension that you carry in your body right now. Just let it go. So another deep breath in, right down to your belly button. And then a long breath out, releasing the day completely, letting go of everything that you've experienced today. Let it go. And take one last deep breath in, all the way into your belly button, and take it right down to your toes, and then up into your shoulders, up into the crown of your head. And then let it go with a sigh. Let it go. Let it all go. Let it all go. Now just settle very quietly into this present moment and become aware of everything you can hear. You can hear my voice. But what else can you hear? Become aware of the faintest sound you can hear. Maybe it's a dog barking in the distance. Maybe it's the ticking of a clock. Just become aware of that. And now bring your awareness into yourself and become aware of the very act of listening. Bring your awareness to your eardrums that pick up the sound. Become aware that you are aware of listening, and that it takes no effort to listen. No thinking, no thought required in the listening process. And marvel for a moment at the incredible miracle that listening is. And while you're in this state of awareness, bring your awareness into that incredible miracle that is the breathing. Because when you're listening, you weren't controlling your breath. In fact, you'd forgotten totally about your breath, and yet your breath continued. Become aware of the miracle that breathes you, that listens. Become aware of the miracle that beats your heart. Become aware of the miracle that is touch and sensation. For right now you can possibly feel your feet on the floor, where your hands are touching. You can feel the chair under you. See if you can pick up the temperature of the room on your cheeks. Become aware of the miracle of consciousness that is aware of all of this. Become aware of the stillness within you that is aware of all of this. See if you can listen to the beating of your own heart in your eardrums. Every time your heart beats, it pushes a pressure wave through your eardrums. See if you can pick up that pulse in your awareness. Now, if you managed to do that, you would have noticed that you became completely still. Because in order to listen, you had to become one with awareness. There was no longer you and your thinking mind and awareness. There was just awareness. That is your sacred space. This is a space out of which all wisdom arises. It's said that God speaks to us in silence. All else is a bad translation. And in order to hear the word of God, we have to become like God, still, silent, and connect to our own sacredness. So take a deep breath in and let it go, and gently open your eyes. And as you do that, just notice how you feel in this moment. How do you feel? More at ease, more at peace, more still? Isn't that beautiful? Thank you.
It was lovely, thanks, John. Everybody feeling a little bit calmer right now? I'll speak a bit louder because I've been asked to. So we're just going to talk tonight about sacred space. Obviously, the most sacred space of all is the one that John's just led us to, which is inside us. But there are other sacred spaces too, so we're just going to chat about them, and then I'll end off the evening with a meditation, visualization, to take you into a sacred space and create your own sacred space inside you. So we've been sort of talking a little bit during the day, and I was just thinking that, you've got the sacred space of community, which creating a space where community can get together to talk, to be held in a safe space, whether that's online, which is kind of the only option right now, or in a workshop environment, or just your own community, within your community. And I think that right now, what we're going through on our planet, I think community is really, really important. So I think that whatever we can do, each of us, to create a sacred space for people in our environment, or our families, or our community, it's a good idea to do that and just put it out there, because people need it. We need a sense of community. Yeah? What do you think about that?
Yeah, the world has gone to first of all, it's gone away from community. It's gone more towards the corporate sort of identity and the country identity, and we've grown bigger and bigger and bigger to now we have a global community, and that's not a bad thing. However, it's too big to be functional. And part of this transformation, part of this reset that we're going through right now is a reset back into functional systems. And a functional system, science seems to show, is community-based of between 80 and 100 people. That seems to be the most productive, the most cohesive community to build. And this is what we're initiating in these calls that we're doing, is an online community, which obviously can be a lot bigger than 100. It is a lot bigger than 100. But it's still in our living space. I think 80 to 100 people is a great community to connect with. Not that we are insular, not that we are disconnected from the other communities, but we work predominantly within our community. We buy from within our community. We serve from within our community. And we go outside the community only on that 10-20% of the time when we need to outsource something. Where at the moment we import our food from foreign countries. We get strawberries from Israel and beans from Malawi, and we get our clothes from China. And that is not, it's not sustainable in the long term, because the cost of production, the cost of transportation is too damaging to our environment, but also it takes a cost of living beyond the average person's ability to produce. So I think it's coming back to simplicity. And coming back to simplicity is the sacred space. So just my take on creating a sacred space is that we normally look at ourselves as units of production, doingnesses. And the world for many years now has worshipped intelligence, IQ. And the cleverer you are, the more quickly you're able to respond in a situation, the more highly paid you become. At school, when we get asked a question, it's the person who's cleverest who raises his hands and answered. Now, that might be not the most considered answer, but it's the cleverest answer. And in fact, the slower person who takes time to hear the question, process the question, and then tap into the intuitive wisdom of answering that is a person not heard in the society that we have. And so wisdom hasn't been very honored or valued in the world that we have built up in the last few hundred years. I know when I was doing the talks on the Mayan culture, at the age of 54, two things happened. The one is really great. All debt was extinguished every 54 years. Yeah. I mean, how about that? And our whole culture is built on this debt story. Imagine if every 4 years all debt was extinguished. Debt is artificial. And the second thing that happened when you reached the age of 54 is that you no longer were required in the active production of goods and services. You were actually elevated into the council of elders. And people drew on your wisdom, your experience, to enrich the tribe or the culture. And in fact, the world that we built up has, not only has it not valued wisdom, it actually fears wisdom. Because with a wise society, we couldn't exactly do the madness that we have. It's mad to have the military machine that we have. It's mad to have the political system we have. It takes wisdom to actually see through the illusion that they present to us through the medium of advertising and see what the real deeper truth within it. Now, this wisdom doesn't come from cleverness. This wisdom comes from a sacred space within us. Yeah. So I'd like to read a quote here from Viktor Frankl, and many of you will probably know who Viktor Frankl was. He was a survivor of 2 or 3 concentration camps during the Second World War, and he founded a whole new field of psychology and has helped many millions of people, I think, around the world. And a quote from him is, "Between the stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Now, the world generally doesn't allow space. It doesn't want you to have that freedom to choose. It wants that situation reaction. No time to ponder the situation. If you look at how quickly this lockdown came, there wasn't any open debate on whether it should or shouldn't happen. There wasn't any wisdom put into that. It was we have a crisis, this is our response. And when we lack that space in our own lives, we become prisoner to the processes going on in our brain, the endless loops of programming going from our early childhood maybe, through our education, socialization, religion, etc. Those processes create the automatic responses that we have. And I think this lockdown is such a tremendous gift to us because it gives us the space to open up to the intuitive wisdom we have inside us. A lot of us, have this feeling that there's something deeper going on here than just this separation from a virus, this social distancing. We know intuitively, many people feel that there's something deeper going on. And if we are given, as we are, the time now, and we go into the space, the deeper truth will be revealed to us. Not on the outside, not in the media, not in the news, but in this deeper inner knowing. So as Viktor Frankl said there, that it's the space that gives us the freedom to choose. And I would guess that freedom is probably quite high on the list of desires that we have for our lives. Most of us are on what's called a spiritual path. And isn't freedom what our heart yearns for on the spiritual journey?
I agree. But I think we've got to make time for it. And I think that with our very busy lives, even when we're in lockdown, there's a lot coming at us, a lot of media, everybody's on their cell phones, everybody's trying to find out what's happening, what's true. And I think what John's just said is so important. It's to actually feel it, to feel what's true for you. And the only way you can do that is by being quiet and by making that sacred space, because that's when you hear it. Otherwise you're just drowned out by all the noises around you, and you can't actually hear your own truth, which is the truth that you listen to when you're aligned. So I think that it's really important that we make that space in our lives, but not just now. I think this is a good time to if we haven't made that space, this is the chance to do that. And it's very often takes a crisis to actually make us shift. So we might say, yeah, I really want to meditate, but I haven't got the time and I just don't get to it. And we can keep saying that until we actually hit with a crisis where the thoughts are so overwhelming that you kind of have to do something. And I think that's a lot of people are finding themselves in that situation where they're going, whoa, I've got to do something. And it's just because everything is right here, because there's not that much busyness and you're not running around all day and driving here and driving there. So I think it's a very, very unique opportunity to do that. So if you've been waiting to do it, this is the time. And what I was saying there as well is, you've got your community sacred space, you've got your family sacred space. So to create a space between you and whoever you live with. We mentioned in our relationship talk the other night to create a sacred space within your family, to check in with each other, see how you are, listen to each other. Because that's also a thing that seems to be leaving our lives. I know a lot of families sit and basically eat their meals while they're watching TV or on their cell phones, and that's just become the norm in many, many lives. So maybe this is a time when we can actually create those spaces. And if you live on your own, then you want to make that space yourself. I mean, I lived on my own for a long time, and I had to actually create that sacred space for myself. So that's like a physical sacred space that we can create. And I mean, it's lovely if you've got a beautiful room and it's a sanctuary and it's dedicated to your spiritual life. That's great. A lot of us don't have that. So it's to create some kind of a space where you feel that you're safe, you're warm, you feel supported, private preferably, and create that space and go there regularly to that same space, because it builds up an energy. I think it, if you have got a space, we've got a little space here where we light a candle and make it sacred. So putting little plants there, just going outside and picking some flowers and putting them in a little vase and putting them into that sacred space, for me, is part of the creating of that sacred space. You can put your favorite book there, you can put incense, you can put your oil burner, you can put candles, you can put your deities, whoever is precious to you. Whatever it is that actually makes that sacred space more like home, I think is really important. And I think it's quite interesting that a lot of people that don't have sacred spaces, a lot of people say, well, I don't. I mean, I've got one client who says, I never have 5 minutes to myself, is to find a way of finding a sacred space. And I remember reading before I went to Findhorn in Scotland, the woman who started it, Eileen Caddy, I don't know, between her and her husband, I think they had 5 children or something, and they were sharing a caravan in Scotland, and it's cold, so there's no going outside. And she used to go to the toilet, like an ablution block, because they lived in a caravan park, and she would sit in the toilet, and that was her sacred space. She created that as a sacred space, and that was where she did her communing with Spirit and got her answers and did her prayers and everything. So there's always a way,
Yeah, example, 20 odd years ago when I first started dedicating a certain time in the day and a space in the day to do the spiritual work. We had a very big house. We had a 6-bedroom house, and all of it was full. All of it was full, and there was no dedicated space to the stillness, to the spiritual aspect. I mean, the garden was my sort of closest connection to that. But I started doing a process, and what I did is I went into the one room, which was really a storeroom, a junk room, and my daughter was doing fine arts, and I think that was before the fine arts. She was doing art at school, and that room was full of her projects and art stuff, and it had piles of boxes, and it was a mess. And I found a little space, and then I cleared a little space, and I put a little candle and some incense. And I used to go into the room and make my way around all the clutter and just sit there in my quiet little space and start doing it. It was uncomfortable because it wasn't sort of supported by the family at that stage. And but I dedicated myself to that. Every single day, half an hour, I used to go in there and just be in that tiny little space. And it's grown and grown over the years, and the sacred space for me now is a very important part of my life, but also my living space as well.
Yeah, so I think that's just, if you don't have one, make one, because it'll draw you. It starts to draw you to that space. You want to be there because it starts to actually, you infuse your energy into that space, and that space becomes a place that you want to go, and where you can go in and you can connect quicker than if you're in any other part of the house. So that's a physical space that we can create. And then I think it's also making things in your life sacred. So everything you do, if we make life sacred, then as John said in our opening meditation, the touch of your hands is sacred. Your eyes, your body that supports you and supported you for all these years. If you can look at everything as sacred, your home, everything in your home, the people in your life, even those that press your buttons, they're sacred. They are to be revered because they're part of your journey. Even lockdown situation, I guess, we can see that as something because it is part of our journey. I mean, it's brought us together. We probably wouldn't be sitting here if we weren't in lockdown at the moment. So there are opportunities in this. So just making normal things like washing dishes. You can actually make that a sacred act. I mean, we've been doing a lot more housework than we normally do. And you can actually enjoy it if you just make it into a sacred act. So it's like making life art, you know, as opposed to just doing chores for the sake of doing them and quickly getting to the end of the chore. Just saying, well, I've got to wash the dishes now, so let me feel the water on my hands. Let's feel the soap and the warm water. And you can actually enjoy it if you shift your paradigm to that being a sacred act. So that's sacred space too.
And I think to add depth to what Michelle is saying there, just regarding the doing a chore, for example, the mind always lives on that horizontal plane, going from past to future, and it's all about outcome. It's all about getting somewhere. So you're doing the dishes so that you can go and sit in front of the TV set, you know, and you're washing the floor so that you can do X, Y, Z later on. And we're always away from the present moment. So adding sacredness to the chores that we do is to make this your primary focus, whatever it is. Clearing the table. I'm clearing the table. Not to get the table cleared, but to be in process of clearing the table. Or washing the dishes. I'm washing this dish. Not to get the process finished, but just to honor this act that I'm doing right now with my full attention. My full attention. And that brings in the sacred space into doing the chores of your life, instead of rushing always to the future. You know, to understand sacredness, we obviously all have different ways of looking at the word, but for me, sacredness is our connection to our true essence, the divine within. And that sacredness is presence. Presence is the narrow gap that Viktor Frankl was talking about, between the event and the response, between the past and the future. And that narrow gap is a space between our thoughts. And that is presence. So it's said in the ancient texts that God is omnipresent. God is present, always, here and now, in the space between our thoughts. In the space between our acts is a space between our past and our future. That is the most sacred space in all of creation. It's always there, but we don't honor it with our attention. So when we say creating a sacred space in our life, the sacred space is always there, but we are not there with that sacred space. So really what we're doing is we're bringing our awareness into alignment with the sacredness of each and every moment. And having a dedicated place, a physical dedicated place in the house or in the garden is an excellent place to start. As it is in your day, to set aside a certain, particularly in the morning before sunrise, to set aside a space before you get active in your doingness, and to honor the new day being born with your presence, and to combine that with a sacred physical place in your house is wonderful, because that's rather like filling up your bank account. In the morning you fill it full of presence and peace and centeredness and gratitude. And then during the day when the challenges come, you've got a nice bank account full of peace and presence to draw on as life tries to pull you away.
Yeah, and then I think also ending your day with a space as well. Just saying thank you, gratitude. You know, it's short. You can write them down. Just spend a few minutes just in gratitude. So it's creating like punctuations in terms of spaces. One of the things that I learned long ago was this chap, so long ago, I can't remember who he was, and he said, pause during your day. And it's amazing what just a word like that can actually do, because he said that most of us will go through our days, and I mean we all find ourselves doing that because that's what we do. But you know, you drive somewhere and you get there and you get out the car and you're on the phone and you're locking your door and you're thinking about going into the building wherever you're going, and you're dragging the journey that you've just driven into your next interaction with whoever you're going to interact with. And then straight away after that, you're going into the next thing without pausing. And for me, when I remember to pause, it changes everything. Everything. So I can do that, and then one breath, pause, and then get up and do something else. And it creates that beautiful space. And for me, that's a sacred space, which is like music. Without spaces in music, music's not music. Without spaces in words, words aren't sentences. So it's like putting little punctuation marks during the day really helps. It's a huge technique for me. I sometimes just put a little thing up saying pause. Yeah. Because we forget. I forget. And I forget as well that, I'm thinking about when I'm washing the dishes, the next thing that I've got to do. Until you become the witness, and the more you do that, the more you realize. You go, no, I'm washing the dishes now. The next thing will come after that. But our tendency is to always be reaching for something else. So one of the things I teach is, or I hold facilitated classes in process art. And the whole thing is about being in process, which means it's not outcome driven. And our lives are outcome driven, every single element just about. From the word go. Go to school so you can get a good career, so you can get a good job, you can, make yourself look pretty so you can pull a nice husband or whatever. There's always an outcome to everything we do. So we condition to believe that it's got to be outcome driven. And that prevents us from just being in the process. So people will come to a workshop and say, I'm not creative. I go, yes, you are. And when they're able to just be in presence, it is unbelievable what happens creatively. Because everybody's creative. The only thing that stops it is the thought that I'm not creative, and the thought while you're doing it that it's not looking the way I want it to look. It should look like that, and it's not looking like that. That's what cuts the creativity. When you're able to actually just let it evolve, it's beautiful. You're in the process. And that's, for me, that's a little bit like life. Like a lot of us are now thinking, when's this going to end? What's going to happen at the end? What's our world going to look like? What's our community going to look like? What's our economy going to look like? And none of us know. Not a single one of us know that. So all we can do is be in it as fully as possible. And when the mind goes freaking out about the next thing in 2 months' time, just bring it back to today. I can do this today. And then narrow it down even more. I can do this right now. Right now I can go and pick a flower. Or right now I'm feeling fear or anxiety or frustration. I can just breathe and just be here now. So I think that's it's really helpful in terms of where we find ourselves now, to create those little spaces. Yeah.
So the website that we have and the work that we are doing together here is called Journeys of Awakening. So it's nice to look at this as a journey. And where we are today is just one step on a journey. But it is the most important step. It's not about a destination. The journey of awakening is a very different journey to the one that we normally take in life. Because generally when we go on a journey, it's about getting over there. We want to go to Durban by the sea or wherever. Come to Cape Town. It's about getting to Cape Town. This journey is very different. It's actually a journey without distance to a place that we never left. And it's to make the step you're taking right now the goal. Your purpose in life, your purpose in living is the step you're taking right now. And creating sacred spaces is one of the steps. Not an outcome, it's a process that we go through. And earlier on I came across a teacher that had 7 steps on a spiritual journey. And I'd just like to share them with you if I can find them here. So she was saying that number 1 on creating a journey for yourself, a spiritual journey, number 1 is the sacred space. The importance of creating a sacred space in your environment and in yourself. The second one she said is gratitude. And then she said the next stage is forgiveness, not the next stage, but another step on the journey. is forgiveness, visualization, affirmations, meditation, and prayer. So that's what she said for her 7 steps. I'll go through them again. Creating the sacred space, gratitude, forgiveness, visualization, affirmation, meditation, and prayer. Now for me, that's fine to have those 7 steps, but they're not sequential. They all sit in a single basket of presence. So whatever you're doing, whether you're doing the sacred space, whether you're doing affirmations, whether you're doing visualization, whether you're doing prayer, they all are seated in a basket of presence, of isness. So there's no going anywhere with a prayer. You know, some people pray asking for stuff and hoping for an outcome. No, that's not prayer. That's your mind. Prayer has got nothing to do with time. Prayer is just presence. You're just communing in this moment with that divine. In whatever form you want to see divine or formless, you're connecting to presence. That's the purpose of prayer, is to be present. Not to make it some future outcome. So all of those so-called 7 steps on the spiritual path are held continually in the number 1, which is a sacred space. And just to look briefly, if we can just look at what is the spiritual journey. I think next Sunday we're going to do a whole evening on the spiritual, on the journey of awakening. But just for a moment, look at this word spiritual. Now, for some people, obviously, it's got a religious connotations, because a lot of people go to their religion for their spirituality, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would say that religion is a subsect of spirituality. In other words, it fits into spirituality. But spirituality is actually awakening. It's actually awareness. It's actually consciousness. It's actually unconditioned awareness, consciousness. That's really what it is. And creating a sacred space is a bridge into that spiritual essence of being. It's a bridge.
Yeah.
And it's very important to have this bridge, to go across, to exit that matrix, which I spoke about previously, and there's that YouTube clip up, that doingness, which is the matrix, the past and the future. And the bridge out of that is the sacred space. And there's a name above the bridge, and it says surrender. Yeah. So you go across the bridge of surrender to get into the sacred space. And the surrender is just the giving up the need for future, giving up the need for outcome, as Michelle was saying, giving up the need for something more, something other than what is in this moment. And just being fully together with life in this moment. The acronym OWL, that is the acronym for one with life. And the more at one with life you are, the more present you are, the more wise you are. We have created this world, as I said earlier, the world of intelligence, of cleverness. We can create an atomic bomb. It's very clever. You have to be very intelligent to create an atomic bomb. But there's not much wisdom in there, is there? Not much wisdom. So we have different intelligences. And if you look at what Stephen Covey says about the different intelligences, he said the highest intelligence is SQ. SQ is spiritual intelligence. For that must be the guiding intelligence to all the other intelligences. So we have emotional intelligence, and we have IQ, and we have body intelligence, there are many other intelligences. But spiritual intelligence, Stephen Covey said, is the most important. And he's talking to, he was talking directly to CEOs of companies. And he was saying, in the running of your business, your primary intelligence is your spiritual intelligence. And that is wisdom. And I would guess that most of you will probably agree with me that right now, what the world needs is not more cleverness. We need more wisdom. And wisdom is an integrative awareness. It's looking at what the whole is about. It's what is good for the whole. Cleverness is what is good for the tiny little part over here. We can understand this little part. We have no idea how it fits into a functioning whole. But wisdom is to make the whole more important than understanding the little part over here that we're dealing with.
Yeah, and I think there's also a lot of people, I think that spirituality is also one of those outcome-driven things. You know, so-and-so is spiritual, so-and-so is not spiritual. We've all heard people say that. We might have said it ourselves. Or she's so spiritual. We're all spiritual. That's the reality. It just is that.
It's who we are.
It's who we are, okay? And there's no hierarchy in that. I think that we go up and down, if you want to call it up and down, that, you know, we might be feel very connected and then not so connected. It's not a process. It's not a climbing the ladder thing that now I've got there, you know, because that's what we think our lives are. We think our careers are, you know, I'm going to do that and I'm going to get a qualification and I'm going to work really hard and make a lot of money. That's a kind of a linear process. But in my experience, spirituality is not like that. It's organic. It grows and it shifts, and it's about acceptance, about where we're at, where we are. You know, it doesn't mean that just because you're fearful, you're not spiritual, or just because you're in a bad mood, you're not spiritual. It just means that that's the mood that you're in. If you can be aware of it, then that means that you've actually called in the witness. So I think that's also just to bear in mind, that I think that we must just be aware that spirituality is also not a destination, because it's already here. I remembered when just after I studied astrology, I went to an astrologer. I was just busy studying. I didn't know anything about astrology. And she did my chart. And she leaned forward across her table and she lowered her glasses and she said, "How much time do you pay to your spirituality?" And I kind of looked at her and I said, "Well, you know, I'm very busy. I've got all these things to do and I'm studying and I'm running a business and I'm got to look after my this and that and home." And she lowered her glasses more and she looked at me and she glared at me and she said, "You haven't got time for your spirituality? Then what are you doing here?" And I just, every now and then her voice comes to me and I think, exactly, what are you doing here? If you can't commit to that, which is your function, your purpose for being here, is to actually connect, the way I see it, is to connect with that. Then if you're not doing that, well then what are you doing here? So if that means creating a little space for yourself in the corner of somewhere to do that, and putting little punctuation marks into your day, doing a gratitude practice, whatever it is, you know, if we want peace and we want freedom and we want, to feel liberated, then that's the only way. Because nothing else gives you that. Nothing else gives you that. You know?
Yeah. And just to add on to that, those of you who are on my emailing list would have received the Easter newsletter that I sent out. And in the Easter newsletter I had that map of consciousness, which is the cross, the horizontal bar and then the vertical bar. So the horizontal bar is about outcome, it's about time, it's about future. It also carries continual fear with it, false evidence appearing real. The vertical bar is the spiritual side. That's the sacred part. That's the presence. It's always here, never moves. There's no outcome. It doesn't get bigger, it doesn't get less. You are that. Another name for the vertical plane in this cross, the vertical is beingness. Now, as Michelle said, there's not gradients to beingness. You are being already. It's who you are. There's just the awareness of it. That is the only difference. I know when Ramana Maharishi was asked, how can we gauge our progress on the spiritual path? And his answer was the degree of lack of thought, of thinking. In other words, that space in your awareness, that's the gauge of how far you are on your spiritual path. Now that stillness is always here. You are it. It's your being. How do I know that? Well, we did that little exercise right in the beginning this evening, where you became the listener. Now you didn't go and acquire that. You were the listener. You were the listener all along. It's just your awareness was being distracted by the noise in the mind. So this spiritual awakening and this sacred space that we're talking about tonight is not something you have to go and get. It's just the realization of what is already here. But it's good to have some physical anchor in the physical world to help you find that within your practical physical living space. You might want to do this in the garden. You can make, I've got a little section, in the bottom of the garden where we've got a nice little statue, we've got a bird bath, and there's a bird feeder there. It's a very sacred part of the garden. So that's the sacred space in the garden. But you might want to make a medicine wheel. You can just look it up on the internet. You go and get some sticks and twigs and rocks and make yourself a little medicine wheel in your garden. It's quite easy to do. You can even make a medicine wheel on the floor of a room in the corner, on a desk maybe, on a little table. You can get some stones and arrange them in a sacred manner. That's a sacred space. You can, in Hogsback, the one place called Mirrors, they've got this beautiful stone circle that they've erected in their garden with these beautiful rocks, and when you go into that space you feel that connectiveness because of the intention behind the people who put the rocks there. So a sacred space in your garden is very important. As far as the sacred space in the home, we have one here in this room. In fact, I photographed it this morning in the morning meditation, and if you scroll down this Facebook page, you'll see a photograph of it 2 or 3 posts below that I took this morning in my morning meditation. It's a very simple little space. I have, a candle, we've got some flowers, and we've got a little statue, and you can put up a picture of your deity, as Michelle said. I've got a beautiful picture of, it's a spirit painting of Jesus, which I always, when I really want to connect, I bring that picture there. Anything you want, anything that makes you feel connected to presence is fine. It's beautiful and wonderful. And to honor that, crystals. Beautiful to have that. I've got crystals there as well, water, something from nature.
Yeah, that's a good point also. To have something from the 4 elements is quite lovely in a sacred space. So you've got your candle for the fire. You can have incense to sort of depict air. And you've got something from the garden for earth and water. So the 4 elements, it kind of just creates a balance. And then to make that beautiful. So, if you can do beautiful things. You can make mandalas out of flowers. You can, and obviously the creative side, if you do creative stuff, then creativity is also a sacred thing to do. So to create it brings you into that alignment. So whether it's playing the piano or the guitar or doing a dance or listening to music or making something. When we were in Hogsback, we took everybody out into nature and we each made something in nature, an art piece in nature that we would leave there. And that's my favorite thing to do whenever I'm outside, is to actually just make something. It could be just putting a little leaf on a branch, and that's your gift kind of back to nature. And what it does is it connects you in to wherever you are, to that place in nature, by really looking at it. Because you can sit quietly in a place of nature, and 5 minutes, if you sit for 5 minutes in one place, you will see things that you never see in that place. You'll see a whole ecosystem. So you can make beautiful art on beaches and in gardens and stuff. Yeah.
And then one of the things that we share is, with my surname being Homewood, I'm most at home in a wood, in a forest. And when we see an old tree, a tree that's been through a lot, you can see it twisted and turned and it's weathered. When you sit and look at that, you go into that sacred space so quickly, and you're in awe of what has been created and what you're witnessing in the moment. So to honor trees, that's a beautiful sacred space to have in your garden or something like that, to honor that. Now, having talked all about, creating sacred spaces and how important it is, why do this? And it's very simple. We're going through very challenging times at the moment. There's a lot of uncertainty. And what we need now is we need a greater level of intelligence, and we need a greater level of clarity. When you sit, if you have a problem going on in your life, for example, you've got a lot of thoughts going on and you're busy worrying about a situation, and you have a sacred space set up either in your garden or your house, and you go and sit there, you light a candle, light some incense, and you sit and just be in that moment, and there's a clearing of your mind. It may take 10 minutes, it may take 20 minutes, but then there's a clarity of purpose. And an intuitive guiding wisdom arises from within you. And that is the purpose of creating a sacred space. So you can connect with this intelligence that's beyond your thinking mind. The thinking mind got us into this. And now we need to call on a different level of consciousness. As Einstein said, you can't solve the problem from the same level of thinking that you were at when this was created. We have to dig deep now. We have to go into this new arena, which is the vertical plane of presence, and find clarity and intelligence, real intelligence, wisdom that's lying in stillness for us. So I don't see this as just something to do when you've got enough time. I see this as a very important part, a very vital part of what we're going through. You know, we worry about buying good food for our bodies, but this is actually food for our soul.
Yeah.
This is to nourish our soul. That's what a sacred space does.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we need to go into meditation.
Shall we do a centering meditation now?
Yeah.
That would be good. Thank you.
Okay, maybe run a few minutes over time, but let's see how. Just make yourselves comfy in the meantime.
And I'm going to introduce a candle.
John's going to introduce
Well,
a candle.
our candle has been sitting here, and now we're going to bring it more into view. So hopefully you can see that. There we go.
Okay.
All right, do you want to put that light
this
off
one?
there? All right. It's my favourite part of the evening.
Aha. Okay. Okay, everybody comfy? Let's see what I'm doing here. So just taking a few nice deep breaths. So a nice deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Another nice deep breath in and out through the mouth. And the third breath that you take in, on the out breath, see if you can just relax your body. So breathing in and release on the out breath. Just let it all go. Another deep breath in and a beautiful release. You can even do a sigh out. Just let all those worries, those anxieties, all those frustrations all just drop away from you. Another deep breath in and out. And then just bringing your attention to your normal breath. How easily it happens. A sacred breath. Nothing you have to really do. Just notice it going in through your nostrils. And then how it exhales. And as you breathe, just bring a wave of relaxation all the way down through your body, from your head all the way down to your toes. Imagine a white light moving down through your head into your face, softening your face, down into your neck, softening your neck. No need to hold any tension right now. Send that light down into your shoulders. Drop those shoulders. Just drop them and soften them. Down into your torso, front and back, all the way down your spine, all the way down your front, into all your organs. Send that light into your heart and expand your heart. Soften it. Imagine softening your heart, opening it. We always have the opportunity of opening or closing. Opening is always better. Bringing the light down through your hips, into your legs, into your feet, and into the earth. Just keep bringing that light down. Take your attention now to the middle of your forehead, the place where you can visualize. And imagine yourself in a meadow. Beautiful, beautiful meadow. Sun-kissed. Full of flowers. Every color in the rainbow. Full, full, full of flowers. Feel the sun on your cheeks. Maybe you feel the breeze. And hear some birds tweeting. Just allow this beautiful scene from nature to seep into you. There's no need to see it clearly. You can just get a sense of it. If you don't visualize clearly, it's no problem. To the one side of the meadow, you see a pathway with some stairs leading down. So make your way to the pathway, take your shoes off, get to the top step and start to descend the pathway. I'll just count you down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And in front of you is a door. And on the door is your name. Get a sense of what that door looks like. You have the key to the door. Turn the key, open the door, and there in front of you is your very own sanctuary. It could be a sanctuary in your imagination. It could be a room. It could be a place from nature. This is a place where you can revisit, where you can come back over and over. A place where you feel safe, supported, loved. So just cast your eyes around your space. Get a sense of where you're at. What time of the day, whether there's sunlight coming in, or whether it's the evening. Get a sense of your colors that are around you. Just seep in the colors, the smells, the temperature. If you're in a room, or if you're in another place, imagine that there's a place in this room where you can be creative. What would that have in it? Would it have musical instruments? Would it have paints? Would it have clay? Would it have games? What would it have there? And you can go into this place later, or whenever you want to, and add things. Now imagine a little place which is specifically for your healing. You might have crystals there, you might have rainbow-colored lights, you might have beautiful smells. This is a place that if you aren't feeling good, you can imagine yourself going into your very own sanctuary, maybe lying on a healing bed. Maybe you have a masseur that's there to massage you, stresses away, with beautiful oils. Imagine now that there's a little place, inside your sanctuary, that is your sacred space. It might have a comfortable seat, some cushions, might have some candles, some flowers. It may have some precious things from people past or special beings in your life. Create your space the way you need it to be created. So if the world's very loud, you can just retreat into your inner sanctuary. Imagine now sitting in that inner sanctuary right now, connecting, lighting your candle, and just bringing yourself to presence, bringing yourself into this moment. Take yourself right into the middle of your heart. Take that candle flame and place it right in the middle of your heart. And in this sacred space, right now, ask a question that you would like an answer to. And then you can leave it. You can surrender that question. You can surrender it into the flame if you like. You could even surrender your worries and anxieties into that flame. Just sit quietly for one more moment and just listen. You might find an answer. You might hear an answer. You might have a sense. Just enjoy being present. No expectations. If no answer comes, that's fine too. It will. You've asked the question in a sacred place, and the answer will come. And now just take a few breaths. I'm going to leave you in your sacred space tonight. I'm not going to take you out. You can stay there. Stay in this relaxed state. Stay in this place that's inside you, always, never goes anywhere. And then just take your attention to your breath. Honoring the sacredness of the breath, the sacredness of this moment, the sacredness of this community, and just giving gratitude, feeling the gratitude. I'll take 3 deep breaths. And you can just bring yourself back to whatever degree you need to. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, and just like to leave you with an affirmation that you can work with. So I've got my affirmation cards here. Would you like us to choose one for anyone you want?
I'll choose that one. Okay, so this is what the card says. I don't know if you can read it. You won't be able to because it'll be back to front. Oops, sorry. It's I am stillness, and I radiate peace into the world.
I am stillness, and I radiate peace into the world. No doing there. I just am. I am the stillness, and I radiate peace into the world. Thank you for being with us tonight. On Wednesday night we will do another session, and that one's going to be on healing fear. There's an awful lot of people are experiencing fear in their lives, anxiety. So Wednesday evening at 7:30 we'll be looking at healing fear in your lives. If you enjoyed tonight, that's great. Join us on Wednesday. Tell your friends. Let's build this community. Bless you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. That was a beautiful meditation. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
Enjoy your
everyone.
sacred space.
Lots of love.